Heard a lot about the complexities of licensing, what it takes to get a project through. We've heard about subscriptions. We heard about moving IT infrastructure to the cloud. We heard about disruption and transforming yourself from being hardware to software centric. Everybody here is somehow involved in some sort of licensing project. And in the end, who's going to be the recipient of the impact of whether you do this well, you don't do it well? There's one key component here, is the customer. What's your customer experience going to be, your customers? How is licensing going to be perceived? How is it going to be consumed? How are you going to be easy as a vendor to do business with? And that is the subject of our next presentation. I mentioned that I had worn a few different hats at the organization. About 4 years ago, I was transitioning over from product management, heading up our services team, and we ended up getting a call from Ms. Dana Whitmore, heads up strategy and software supply chain for HPE, involved in a massive license migration and implementation phase. But the interesting part was that the core sort of focus for them was how to transform their customer experience. We started off a few core people, some of who are in this room here today, huddled up in a little conference room in Norwood, Massachusetts, doing a lot of whiteboarding, and we have some wonderful battle scars and friendships that are informed from that experience. But what was really interesting about this was that it really started with everything around absolutely measuring the impact of the customer and working backwards for it, even though so many different systems were impacted by it. So it remains one of the more interesting and rewarding engagements I've worked on, and I'm really excited to have Dana come in and share this with us. So I'll leave the stage to you, Dana.
Good afternoon. I'm Dana Whitmore. I work for Hewlett Packard Enterprise, and I'm here today to talk about our customer journey. As Jam mentioned, it was quite the thing. And there are a lot of people in this room that have helped us on that journey. I want to thank them, one and all, for sticking with us through it. So I wanted to give you a little bit about our, if we can move to, I have the thing. I can push the button. I can push the button. Look at that. All right. So I wanted to give you a little bit of an introduction to Hewlett Packard, myself, and talk a little bit about Hewlett Packard's product portfolio and how software plays a role in that. And then talk about our journey from a customer experience perspective and what we do to manage customer experience and what we've done within our implementations to be able to track customer experience and build that into our portfolio as we make changes going forward. Talk about customer feedback and how we get that customer feedback through surveys and other mechanisms. Talk a little bit about what our journey looked like, where we started from, how we got to where we are today, and then a little bit about what we're going to be doing next. So you may have read in the in the industry press about HPE's journey. This has been going on for an awful long time. There's a lot of jaded people, I'd say, within the remainder of HPE about, please, not another acquisition. Please, not another spin-off. Please, don't merge us with anybody else again. And it was at such a rapid pace for the past 5 years or so that we ended up, and Liam's story about acquisitions and the chaos they can cause is just right up the alley. So we acquired Aruba, and they operate as a wholly owned subsidiary. So we support them from a software perspective, but they're running their own operations for the most part. We split HP into two. That was fun. So we spun off the printers business and the PC business into HP Inc., and that left HP Enterprise, which is the company we are now. We then spun off our IT and enterprise services organization to form DXC, and they are also our IT provider today. And then we spun off the classic HPE software business, which was the hardware agnostic part of our software business, off to Micro Focus. And so through all those journeys, at the same time, we were rebuilding our own software world. And some of this stuff helped, some of it didn't. You can imagine the competition for resources, for budget, just to get, bandwidth from somebody who's, knee-deep in a data migration. We were knee-deep in data migrations. Each of these companies that we spun off had products that we supported. So those products had to go somewhere. And so it was a constant battle, to stay in front of the executive team, to stay, this is important, we've got to finish this journey, we can't stop now. So just a little bit to understand the chaos that was going on in the background as we were trying to pull all this off. We have a polling question. I hope I have the answer. Hang on a sec. Yes, I do. This is magic, right? Somebody else does this portion. Okay. So how many software product SKUs do you think, and this is unfair because we put it too early in the presentation, they would have had a better time to guess after the next slide. But if you had to think about the size and scope of a company called HPE, how many software product SKUs, so individual product sellable items, do you think we have active today? Well, the guys in green, they got it right. They got it right. We have 22,000 products within our entitlement management system. We actually had 73,000 in legacy. We left a lot of products behind when we did this initial transformation, and it made life a heck of a lot easier. Because trying to manage, data migration for 22,000 products is a much different animal than managing data migration for 73,000. And the age of these products went back over 20 years. So we migrated from system to system to system to system to system. And we finally said, enough's enough. Let's get rid of some of this baggage. So so it's 22,000 that we have in EMS today. This is a little bit about our portfolio, both hardware and software. And most guys here in this room will gravitate towards the right, to the software problem, the software column. And I show this because we are a hardware and software company. The remaining part of HPE is selling software with hardware and is growing a cloud-based software portfolio stack that you'll see in the upper right-hand corner. So you'll see things here, storage software called 3PAR, Store Once, Store Easy. You'll find system management software called OneView. You'll find OpenVMS, classic operating systems, Helion, Insight Control, another management tool. So you'll see a lot of these portfolios. These are HPE IP. And then we have in the stack there, you'll see all of our cloud management software. That's an evolving portfolio that's been happening. We've been focusing on this for about 2 years now. And so you'll start to see some of these products coming to market. Some of them are expanding their reach as we speak. The middle part of the diagram, or the lower part of the diagram, I put on here because we have an extensive third-party software portfolio. And this is where things get fun. From a licensing perspective, any of you who have a software portfolio that includes third-party recognize that you have to be working with these vendors to make the customer experience really sing, sending them around the universe, oh, let's bounce over to Red Hat, let's bounce over to here. Not a great customer experience, and we hear that all the time. And then finally at the bottom, we have another go-to-market motion called Hpe Complete, and this is really, we use these with smaller third-party vendors as they're growing, and it's a very quick time to market, time to monetization type of business model, and we usually graduate those into our normal software supply chain. So let me just take a quick break there. Any questions? I'm going to go out of order here. Okay, great. And I'm going to get a drink of water. Oh, I didn't tell you about my role. So I have the best job in the world. I am the fairy godmother of software licensing in HPE. And I say that at every meeting because I am. So I manage the software strategy, technology, and capability enablement team, which is even more of a mouthful than what you showed me this morning. And that team consists of 9 people. We basically build our software supply chain strategy, how we're going to get our software to market. We work with our product teams and our product organizations to understand what sort of products they're bringing to market, what sort of requirements those products have from a licensing perspective, whether they need licensing or not. We have other services that we provide, such as interfacing with global trade. for example, and we deliver all of the software for HPE. So we run in a tax advantage model in Puerto Rico, so we manage all of that complexity and regulation there. So when I'm saying that I'm the fairy godmother of software licensing, it's also because I'm the customer champion for HPE in this world. So I am paid to make our customers happy, and it's a passion of mine, and I work with third-party vendors to be able to, excuse me, the voice is going to go, I'm afraid. I work with third-party vendors to make sure that our interaction with them is the best customer experience that we can possibly provide. So this is really the focus of the presentation. This is what HPE is doing. It's what we did when we first partnered with Gemalto. We had a situation, if you will, with where we were during this set of transitions that I was talking about before with HPE. We had both an opportunity and a challenge as we were spinning off different parts of the company. We realized that we had been operating on a single platform that served all of those businesses, every single one, and its customer experience rate was pretty poor, very poor. And it was more related to the design that we did. If Liam is still here, we were a company of engineers. It looked like it was designed by a company of engineers. We did not have expertise in web design. We did not have expertise in UX. And we were serving customers of very, very different business types. And so those customers had different needs coming into this system, and we weren't meeting any of them. So our flows were convoluted. It was very hard to figure out where you had to go next. So when we embarked on this journey, and I'll talk about the journey in a little bit after I get through this particular section, we had, even back then, we had been focusing on customer feedback, and we didn't have great customer feedback. We had more like customer profiles, like who was using the system and why were they there. We didn't have kind of their experience of the system, and we didn't really have a good scoring system. We had something we could derive numbers from, but when you tried to trace it back, to, was it related to a particular transaction? Was it related to a particular product experience? We couldn't do that. So we just knew that we were investing a lot of money in trying to raise that number, and we couldn't do it. So what we did when we started on this particular journey, where we're revamping our entire infrastructure, is we designed in closed-loop feedback. And what this means to us is that we collect the data, and that's part of our system. It's actually automated, and it's part of the customer experience. We've designed it in, basically. So it was a feature on a roadmap. It had a user story. And we have a survey experience, a transactional survey that we run with customers based on metrics of how many times that customer's been bothered before. We look at the data, and what this looking at the data really means to us is that we have open-ended questions and we have numerical questions on the survey. We look at those open-ended questions because that's really where the gold is. That's where the customers really tell you what you ought to be doing. And they'll tell you in glorious detail how to solve all of these problems or to make it go away. But licensing is a necessary process at this point in time, and what we've learned is that looking at those comments, they will tell you really where the problems are in your system. They'll tell you what's wrong with the flow. They'll even tell you what products aren't working, which is great, so then you can go fix them. But it's really their comments, and they're very willing to tell you about this. Their comments are going to guide you on what you need to go and do next. And that's really what we take out of those comments is we look at that data monthly. We really try to get a team to look at it, because if you just have your own eyeballs on it, this is your baby, right? And people are telling your baby is ugly. And so you need to have other people who aren't so close to the system and the process to really look at the data with you. And that's where you can start to get some really breakthrough thinking, because customers looking, or people internally to your company looking at the data from different angles. If you have a sales ops guy looking at the data, he's going to say, I know why that's a problem. It's because in sales ops, we don't collect this particular bit of information. Well, maybe we ought to go work on that. And that's way outside of software licensing. That's a process issue way up front. We wouldn't have thought of it. We wouldn't have known that that bit of data collection was missing either. So it really pays to have a team of people look at the data and look at it regularly. And the reason why we look at it regularly, like i.e. monthly, is because we also want to find out if we're getting better or worse. We have gotten worse. When we've done certain things, we hear about it from customers. We also hear about it when, sometimes you get worse because customers don't like change. The way they used to do it didn't work anymore. Oh no, what happened? You broke my process. It took me 5 seconds longer to get through. But also you find it if you're getting better. And if you are getting better, then continue on that path. You can also spot problems. If you've got a customer or multiple customers complaining about a particular problem or a particular type of transaction, like a rehost, right? Everybody's favorite transaction. Let's move something from point A to point B. Well, if you've got customers complaining about it, why it didn't work, or it was too hard, or I couldn't figure it out, well, guess what? You need to go and look at your rehost process. That is actionable data. It's gold, right? It not only can inform a very short-term plan, kind of your remediation, your constant improvement cycle, but it can also say, well, why are we doing rehost in the first place? Why do we need to rehost? What is it about our process that requires us to make a customer do this transaction with us? Is there another way to look at it? So in these little bits of pieces of information that you're getting from the customer can really trigger some breakthrough thinking about how your process works, what's necessary for customers to do, what things can you do on their behalf. All right. And then finally, really, the gold in this, the value in this, is it allows you to set priorities. And if you're on any sort of a cycle, and I think anybody who's running a software licensing business knows it goes on forever, you will constantly be doing it. You'll be improving it, you'll be changing it, you'll acquire somebody, you'll have to go in and figure out how to digest that acquisition. They'll bring with them some interesting practices that you might want to adopt. They'll bring with you some things that you want to get rid of, but it allows you to, the customer feedback will guide you on what you need to do next. And in some cases, you can't do what the customers want to ask you yet, because you don't have the building blocks, you don't have the functionality, or you don't have the basics, the data that's going to be required to do that particular piece. And so you prioritize the building blocks. There's no, just because you can't say to your manager, oh, we've made this brand new capability available. You can say, well, we have the building blocks in place, and we're going to fund getting the building blocks built so that we can do this in the next iteration. And that's important stuff, because as Liam mentioned, baby steps are really, really important. So customer feedback, if you look at this, kind of take this continuous action plan where you're collecting the data, you're not annoying your customers by doing it, so make sure you have automation in place so you're not surveying the same poor customer on the same transaction on the same product every single day. But you're getting a broad range of customers and a broad range of transactions. You're looking at the data with a team. You're really looking to spot, both your trend. Are you going up or down? Why did you go up? Why did you go down? Did you do something in your last release that isn't working? Or, God forbid, might be working partially, which is even worse. And then really, how do you set your priorities for your next release? And what we do is we prioritize our customer feedback pretty much at the top of the list, along with the baby steps and the building blocks that we need to get to action that feedback. So we use 2 different types of surveys. And there's thousands of surveys, and there's expertise everywhere, right? I am not an expert on customer surveys. I do know that we run two different types. One we use that I've talked about is this transactional survey. And this is where you're actually, the customer is in the tool or has just completed a transaction in the tool, like a license activation. They've just got a key. Or they've just got a key and a download, or they've just gotten a piece of documentation. And this particular customer, might be, have just completed that transaction, and you either pop up a survey invitation that's what we do. We pop up a survey invitation. They say yes, we take them to the survey, and then they're taken right back. So if we don't interrupt their workflow by leaving them in limbo, we did do that for a while, but we fixed that. So the transactional survey, and again, you can design this in all sorts of different ways, and you can do the research yourself. We use a numerical. We have a couple questions that are numerical, 1, 3, 5 type of thing. If the bigger the number set, the harder it is for the customer to pick the number. So, I recommend keeping it simple. And then these open-ended questions, and we keep it very, very short. I think we have 5 between numerical questions and. Thank you, Andrew. We have 5 questions, so it's short, it's sweet, and we take them right back into the workflow. And that seems to work very well. We have a good survey rate, response rate, and so the data is statistically significant. The second type of survey that we do is experience surveys, and these are surveys that are taken out of context, I'd say. So the customers, they may not even be talking to the user of your tool. They could be talking to the second-level executive in the company that you happen to work for that is responsible for software, or a channel partner. So these are usually done at the company level. They're not focused necessarily on software unless you happen to be a software company. So in our case, we have 1 question out of 12. That 1 question covers all of software. That's pretty good for a company like HPE. And it's done on a quarterly basis, and there's pulse surveys, and then there's kind of the full, every 6 months there's a full survey grouping. The reason you might ask, well, they're not in your tool. How useful is this data? Well, this is another area where if you are getting feedback, it might be completely outside of your particular set of boxes. It might be sales ops. It might be your channel partners that are talking to are being surveyed. You'll find out different, this is more how easy are you to do business with. If software comes up on that question, it's usually negative, right? So, even a question of, well, yeah, you're easy to do business with, but man, your software is tough. That's not the answer you want to get, and that gives you directional feedback in a very, very clear manner. Why are we tough? How come he said that? He doesn't like my baby. Well, it's important. If a customer says that, even one, you've got some work to do. So the experience surveys are very useful. They've been useful to us in that they give us clues about other business processes in the company that may not be helping the software experience. So I would say, if you have to instrument for one thing, instrument for transactional, but do your best to try to get hooked into your company's corporate level experience surveys, because they will give you some very interesting data, certainly some around the water cooler type of conversations with your peers in different business groups. So let me talk a little bit about our particular journey. As I mentioned, we were on a system that was shared across multiple business units, multiple customer types, and the customers were there for different purposes, and we weren't meeting anybody's needs. We were stuck, at a D- level of customer sat, some would say an F, and nothing we did seemed to change it. And again, we had a lot of corporate transformation going on at the same time, mergers, acquisitions, and we had an inception point, if you will, where we made it kind of a bold decision to pull ourselves out of that particular infrastructure and really customize for the software with hardware user base, which is now the result of HPE. That is our core market. And when we did that, we chose Gemalto as a partner to help us with our entitlement management solution. We had a bunch of infrastructure that we had already built, some of which we wanted to keep, some of which we wanted to get rid of. But basically, we wanted to solve these key pain points. We had a customer sat problem, just no ends about it. You can't operate at a D- and not get, just not get a bad reputation for how your software business works. Our portal was not user-friendly. The transactions flows were very convoluted. You couldn't really tell whether you're supposed to take path A or path B. It was really unclear what customers were entitled to. We were, and I shouldn't emphasize this point too much because we're still building out this capability, but we had no idea who our customers were. They showed up at the portal. We assumed that if they have a number, they're entitled. That's it. We couldn't tell them what else they had. It was a very granular type of experience. And then we had basically no channel experience. We had no capability for our channel partners to do what their business model was supposed to do. So our approach was really to centralize licensing. We had made moves in this area before, but we figured out that we really couldn't solve this problem until we had everything under one roof. So we started to bring systems in from different parts of the company, get them under one roof, get the teams that were operating those systems, talking to each other, and really try to build our own black box for software licensing. We wanted an intuitive UI. We wanted to use customer language. So you'll find on our portals that we don't emphasize HPE SKUs. We talk about products. This is, a simple little design change, a simple little design center that can make a huge difference. Because who wants to read SKUs, right? We confront customers with SKUs over and over and over again. They are meaningless to anybody who's outside your company. We decided we needed a 360 view on entitlements. So if a customer has bought something, we should be able to have a record of it and be able to show it to them. And then as we talked before, we instrumented in the customer feedback. So that was part of the process. It was part of the design. And then we knew that we were going to continue to do acquisitions. We were going to continue to do spin-offs. That the world was changing. We were going to have new business models. So we really looked at this from this is going to be our core infrastructure going forward. How do we future-proof it? All right. So this shows by the numbers, as bad as they might be. When we started out, we were at about 56%, 54, 56%, hovering there, couldn't move it. We took a huge hit when we did our first implementation, and I would suggest that any change you make, especially if it's big, you should expect and you should inform your executives that this is going to happen, and it's going to take a while, all right, to get back on your feet, get your customers back on their feet, and actually show the value. So if I think Liam might have mentioned that in his lessons learned, but this will happen. This dip will happen. And it may happen over and over again as you continue to make fairly big changes. All right, so just from an executive communication perspective, tool up for this because it'll happen. All right. So in 2015, in 2014, we did our worldwide Big Bang. We had to take all of our products, did worldwide implementation, and then spent the next 8 weeks reading survey feedback and trying to get out of the hole, fixing things as we went along. Customers were actually quite helpful here. They told us what was wrong. They told us where it was wrong. And because we had instrumented the survey that we did, we knew we had enough data to go be able to trace the transaction and figure out what was going on. So it really helped us from a debug perspective. But that's not really the purpose of the customer survey, is to help you with debugging your process. But it was useful. And we were able to track through 8 weeks of 24/7 triage on this, our way out of that dip. And so at the end of 8 weeks, we were able to go back to our management and say, we're back. We're at least equal to where we were before. And we're trending upward. The other thing the customer surveys, if they're nice to you, they can give you glimmers of hope. When you're in that 8 week of transition, when they say, hey, I like this. Hey, this is way better. That can actually buoy your team, and that's important. All right. So it's something where the occasional good news, and you take the quote out of the survey and you blast it, to your team to say, hey, we're getting there, we're getting there. All right. So in 2015, actually I should say in 2014, I forgot this point. We had a theme for this particular first release. It was get in, get my key, and get out. And everybody in the Gemalto and Stellar team in the room will remember that. And it was very useful to have this theme because it was easy. Instead of reading a product requirements document, you read this statement. Is what you're asking me to do going to help with that? And it just made it easy. Your favorite product marketing manager with his favorite project, it was like, is it going to help with this? Nah. Next release. Release after that, something like that. So it made it easy to do prioritization. We knew what our customers wanted. We'd figured out that our customers were trying to get a server up and running. They weren't there to look at their assets. They wanted to get their key and get out. So our flows were designed around this. This was our design center, and it worked. Our customers really were there to get their key and get out. Unfortunately, when we did that, we took away a lot of other functionality because you'd never have enough money, you never have enough time to do everything. So in 2015, our theme was really to give some stuff back to our customers that we had taken away. And that was prioritized by our customer feedback. Hey, what happened to rehost? Now I have to call you up to rehost a product, right? That's no good. So we listened to the customer feedback, prioritized the different types of transactions that we'd had to take off the table in order to get this release out the door, and gave them back. We also did things like multiple activation at the same time, which we'd had a little bit of in our original system, but customers were clamoring for this now. So again, the customer feedback, the monthly process of getting those statements, prioritizing the actions that we had to take, that went into the next release to prioritize what we did. And again, give back what we took away was a theme. In 2015, we also did a benchmarking exercise. And this is something that we should do another Licensing Live presentation on, is benchmarking. But our benchmarking exercise showed that we had a huge hole in our channel process. Basically that we didn't have a channel process for software. And the worst thing we'd done to channel partners was basically move to electronic software delivery. And so they were chasing emails. So in 2016, we released the Channel Partner Portal, Enterprise Solutions and Software Management. And we did a geographic rollout because we worked with our account managers in the regions to train and do MOC with the partners. And that was the theme for 2016. It wasn't that we ignored customers. In the meantime, we still had a full list of things that we were doing. But we knew we had a problem in the channel arena, and if we're doing business through the channel like we are, it's very important to keep those guys happy. And then, the poor admin guys, the guys that hold everything together when everything else is falling apart, we took a lot of stuff away from them too. So it was time to go back and focus on making our admin team more efficient, because the admin teams are talking to your customers. And if they aren't efficient, they're keeping the customer on the phone for longer than they need to, and the customer experience is thus affected. So we focused on the admin portal, our admin portal experience. We have multiple admin portals, unfortunately, just the situation that we happen to be in. But we've made our admin processes much more efficient and speedy. And then today, part of the feedback that we've gotten, not only through our own transactional surveys, which you'd think they'd be talking just about the transaction they just did. Well, they also tell you about all of the other stuff that they've had to do, like the download site they had to go to, or the update site they had to go to, or the marketing site that had a download that they promised that wasn't there. They will tell you all these things. This is useful. Even though you might think, well, come on, I'm here. I want you to talk to me about my particular licensing portal. What happened? Tell me about that activation experience. Tell me it was great. But what they were telling us is that we have too many portals, too many places to go. Our overall lifecycle experience needs work. And so in 2018, what we've been doing is basically knocking down portals, taking them out, consolidating them into a single experience. This is going to take us a while. It's not easy to do. But the benefit of having the same UX, the same process flow, the same site, even customers have learned, they go here, they can probably get it done. So this is a journey that we're going to be on for the next couple of years. That's just what it's going to take. So Part of the transition that HPE is continuing to go through is a corporate transformation. Now that we're a smaller company and a more focused company, we are doing our own internal corporate transformation to make us, as lean and as efficient and customer friendly and easy to do business with as we possibly can be. So our customer sat today is at 87% in the software space, but we still have things to do. Through our survey feedback, we realized that we've got some problems in our update arena, specifically around firmware. Not just firmware, but that's where the noise is concentrating. And we also have this major corporate transformation that's going to deliver us some big changes to software supply chain. We want to take advantage of those changes. So one of those changes is actually getting a full subscription and consumption model, the financial underpinnings of that we've never had before. We will have a more efficient software supply chain because we're going to actually be a full software supply chain now. We have opportunities to eliminate the remnants of physical software that we still have to do. And we're going to move to attribute-based product models. And I know there's a person in the room who's got some expertise that I'm going to pick on for doing that particular implementation. I'm looking forward to that one. So our plan for 2019 really is to consolidate that software updates, including the firmware, into our portal. That's our voice of the customer top item. So it's been prioritized and been funded. We're going to implement subscription and consumption models. Easier said than done, as you've heard through all the presentations before me. We're going to be optimizing our software supply chain, particularly focusing on the work that we do in our factories to do software install and test. We're going to re-benchmark ourselves, and then we're going to look at our VOC feedback again for FY20 major project planning. And then in 2020, we continue the cycle, looking at the feedback that we're getting. How are we improving? How are we falling behind? Look at the benchmarking and figure out what the plan is that we have to go address, big major gaps in benchmarking. And then attribute product models will come in FY20 as well. So conclusions. Closed loop feedback has really worked for us. And it's really closing that works. Feedback is great, but don't annoy your customers with surveys unless you're going to act on the data. It's probably the most important driver that we have for prioritizing what we do in our software space. It's also very important from an executive level that, if we can explain to our executives that we've got customer feedback that's telling us this is important, that it's affecting our product experience, standing in the way of doing things, for example, that product teams want to do, that gets listened to. And listening usually gets some funding to go with it. So listen, learn, and act. Make sure that you're getting the data, that you've instrumented into your process if you possibly can, and close that loop. Make sure you're actioning the data. We've learned, that this has worked for us. We take baby steps. That's kind of our second motto is, we try to make sure that we're heading towards the right thing by taking baby steps. And we started this process with baby steps. But it really it makes it much easier for us to prioritize amongst, the 25 different projects that people will come to you for. If your customers are asking you for something, they're number one. And what's next is for HPE is really driven by what we get in that customer feedback. So we have prioritized the update problem will get solved next year. And so it's just so much more useful to have, those guideposts of what your customers are asking you for, rather than trying to pick from a long list. And finally, there's always more that can be done. And if your customers are asking you for, to do something, then prioritize them. They're important. Thank you.
I think we have time for a few questions.
Oh, right, we didn't do questions. No questions.
People would definitely.
Oh my, okay.
Can you hear? Oh.
Yes.
So everything you said about listening to the customer was really good. How do you get that information in a very organized way? Because there could be the issue of the day versus a themed issue. Do you have a good way to collect that so that you can see what floats to the top?
So who did this survey on the spreadsheet? as their, their business planning tool. Yeah, we have one of those. So the data comes in from the survey machinations. They do a little bit of analysis on it, but it's really our eyeballs that are looking at the data that say, oh, we got a problem with product X over here, and the first pass is always triage. But then the longest pass we take is at the comments. And that's where we get the team of people in to say, okay, what are they telling us? So it's I wouldn't say that that we've got a magic engine at all. It's really, oh boy, I've seen three comments about 3PAR. Anybody done anything to 3PAR lately?
I actually wanted to ask, you had mentioned instrumenting in the survey data. So what exactly does that mean? Like, do you have that as a part of your implementation? Like, is the web team owning that? Like, how does that work?
Right. So we actually have the instrumentation experts over in the table there, but so there's a bunch of survey companies out there. You can decide to use them or not. There's Qualtrics, there's SurveyMonkey, there's a whole slew of them, and you can pick and choose which ones you want. But really, it's getting the customer into the survey, getting them to interact with that survey product, and then getting the data back. And depending on which company you work with, if you work with a company, then they will do you can pay them, of course, to do analysis on the data. If you've localized your survey, then they sometimes can do translation for you, so get the customers back into a language that you're working with natively. But it's that, when I say instrument, it's that particular interface out to a survey company where the customer's taken and then taken back. Don't leave them out there. That's bad. We learned that.
I have two questions.
Yeah.
Sort of two-part question. First of all, thank you. I think your presentation was fabulous, very relevant to us.
Thank you.
You called yourself, I think, the licensing enablement team, and then you made reference to your software supply chain. Are those synonymous? And second part of the question is, what do you include in your software supply chain?
Okay. So the first part, I run the strategy, technology, and capability enablement team. And that's a very small group of people. There's a larger organization of about 140 folks that actually run the entire software supply chain for HPE. This includes physical software manufacturing. It includes, our electronic software development team. We have teams worldwide, actually, for customer service and all that. So those folks are all included in that larger team. So we're just 9 people within the context of that larger organization, and that larger organization is within our hybrid IT organization. Does that answer your question? Sorry.
Do some more.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could give me a reader's right here.
Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, a Reader's Digest definition of what attribute-based product model is.
Oh, goodness. No. Attribute-based product modeling, if you can even pronounce it, is where you get rid of SKUs. So a product, in our case, we have to SKU up every variation on support, for example. So if I'm selling 3PAR with 24/7 support, that's one SKU. If I'm selling 3PAR with 7x9 support, that's another SKU. All right. If I'm selling it in a tiered model with 20 users, 40 users, 60 users, all of those are different SKUs. With an attribute-based product model, each of those characteristics, can be filled in. So you've got 3PAR, 20 users, 24/7 support. And in software, that's why I love this thing. In software, since we do everything on the fly, why do you need a SKU? If you get that data, you're going to react on the fly. You don't need a SKU. Now, for the poor manufacturing guys who have to go pick, pack, and ship this stuff, I can understand why ABM is a fearsome acronym. But for software, I think it's absolutely the way to go, and I can't wait to get there for us.
Hi, can you explain your what you did to help your channel partners with the software electronic fulfillment issues that they were having?
Yeah, so like I said, the worst thing we did for them is do electronic software delivery, which is all email-based. We mail out a receipt, and then somebody has to come back to a portal and put in a number, and then they're authorized and all of that. So poor channel partners were having their end customers weren't getting the emails, misplaced the emails, didn't understand the number that they had to put in, mainly misplaced the emails. And so, it happens. If anybody has an inbox like mine, so what we did was we built a portal for them that allowed them to do virtual stocking, so they could order on us and receive entitlements back. And then as they made downstream sales to their resellers and their end customers, they would transact portions of that entitlement. They could split the entitlement and transact portions of it downstream. At each step, we would collect the customer information. So if it went from distributor to reseller, we would know it was in the reseller's inventory. And when the reseller transacts it to an end user, then we would have the end user information so we could set up the support contract for them. He's got the mic. Uh-oh.
So you had said basically you guys were the voice of the customer, right? Anytime you've got anybody who interacts with the customer, they're like, well, I'm the voice of the customer. I'm sales engineers.
Yeah.
Everyone loves to be the voice of the customer because
Right.
then they have power to drive what you're going to deliver for the customer. How is it that you guys worked out the centralization as you as the voice of the customer to help the prioritization, right? So you don't have 20 different people going, oh, I need this for my
pet
customer,
project.
and I need this for my customer,
Right.
right?
Yeah, that's hard. Basically, we said if it didn't come in on the survey, anecdotes are great. Anecdotes are wonderful. They can actually lead you, to solve some problems that you didn't know you had. But from am I going to spend $200,000 worth of money on this? I'm not going to do it on my sales reps say. I can't. So we actually ask them to, if we've got someone who's really got, an issue that they want worked, we ask them to go and get the customer feedback. Don't anonymize it. Let us know who's talking to it. Get the account manager involved if it's something that's going to cost a lot of money to fix. And then we've actually done projects that have been driven by some of these things where we say, okay, who else has got the problem? Because we can't afford to do point in most cases. We just we can't. Okay.
Oh, it's on. Okay.
Yep.
I have a question about your attribute-based selling.
Right.
So it's very interesting.
I should never have mentioned ABM.
So did you implement a tool to actually enable you to do that, or was that
We haven't yet.
homegrown?
We haven't yet.
Okay.
No, it's as part of the corporate transformation that we're doing, we're getting instrumentation for ABM. Within our software supply chain, we wouldn't have a clue of understanding what that meant. I just know from a strategic perspective that we have the capability to digest that information without having a SKU. And what that means to us is if we have, let's say we've got 300 product families. I need one SKU, one for each product family, or one product family, if you will, with a whole bunch of attributes. So I no longer need product engineers busy with fingers on keyboards or PDM folks busy with fingers on keyboards skewing up my 300 variations of that SKU. So to me, it's magic. I just wish we would get it faster.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
I have to cut it off. But
Yep.
make sure to break, I promise.
Right.
So Dana, I have a question. You mentioned that one of the key things is to study the written survey portion.
Yes.
HP has some sentiment analysis. Maybe other cloud provider has that as well. Do you utilize those tools to extract data or try to figure out what customers see?
We used to.
Or maybe using the human.
Yeah, we used to pay an external company to do analysis on the data. That was expensive, and during one of our cost-cutting modes, we ended up getting rid of that. That was before we had this particular type of survey, this fairly simple pointed survey with the open-ended questions on it. So we found that we can go through that with a team of people, and we frankly don't need the level of analysis. It's pretty easy to do on an Excel spreadsheet to get the numbers that we need and do the trend analysis that we have to do, and then also to pick out the keywords. We do have a program that does keyword analysis that we use, but we haven't paid an external company for that for probably 8 years. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Thanks.
So much, Dana. Thank you. That was terrific.